Here in an article, it says Sean McDermott added to the growing praise for Shedeur Sanders. It said, as a veteran head coach with a defensive background, Sean McDermott had a lot to say about this Buffalo Bills facing Myles Garrett and the Browns' tough defense this Sunday at Huntington Bank Field. He also struck a similar tone when asked about Sanders choosing the word.
But I'm saying it because I'm standing up for Buffalo, damn it. I'm standing up for us. Because what went on is not how it should go down, in my estimation. That play, these guys spent 3 hours out there playing football, pouring their guts out, to not even say, hey, let's just slow this thing down. That's why I'm bothered. In my eyes, it was. Yes. In my eyes.
Because this obviously instantly becomes the premier head coaching position that would be available to.
And now a lot of the coaches that you were looking at potentially. Oh, Mike McDaniel's going to try to get an interview with the Buffalo Bills. He's going to try to go coach Josh Allen. When you get to go land a big fish like a Josh Allen.
A coach with an 8-26 record over his last 2 seasons just got hired to lead the Atlanta Falcons. But that's not even the controversial part. This same coach allegedly spent an entire season destroying the career of Shedeur Sanders, the son of the most iconic player to ever wear a Falcons jersey. And now, he's walking into Deion Sanders' city expecting a warm welcome. What he's getting instead is something no NFL coach has ever experienced: death threats to season tickets. Fans promising to boycott every single home game. Viral videos of grown men so angry they can barely speak. Supporters vowing to wear Deion Sanders' jerseys to every game just to remind Stefansky what he did to Prime's son. Arthur Blank just made a decision that has Atlanta questioning everything about their franchise. The cultural backlash is unprecedented. The rage is building by the hour. And Kevin Stefanski hasn't even coached his first practice yet. This isn't just about football anymore. This is about respect. This is about legacy. And this is about what happens when you bring someone who allegedly sabotaged a black man's son into a predominantly black city that worships that man's father. The news dropped overnight like a bomb nobody saw coming. Kevin Stefanski, freshly fired from the Cleveland Browns after 2 disastrous seasons, was headed to Atlanta.
He immediately runs to the top of my list of folks to talk to right now. I think the Browns absolutely need to talk to him.
What a wrench. What a wrench this could potentially throw.
I would be interested in him. I think the Tennessee Titans with Cam Ward.
Dangerous to describe the 23-year-old's 4+ games this season. Okay, he said he's a good young player off to a great start. Dangerous with the tool set that he brings to the table. He's done a great job. I think their offense is actually ratcheted up since he's been under center, so that'll be a big challenge for us. So Sean McDermott knows the talent of Shedeur Sanders, respects the game.
You're not getting C.J. Stroud for just a back-end first. You're not doing that. They made the playoffs. They have a playoff team here, and it's not because they accidentally got there.
The same Kevin Stefanski who won 2 Coach of the Year awards before everything fell apart. The same coach who led Cleveland to their first playoff victory since 1994. But also the same man who presided over one of the most spectacular collapses in recent NFL history. 8 wins, 26 losses. That's what Stefanski's last 2 seasons looked like. His offenses ranked among the worst in the league year after year. 30th in total offense one season. 28th the next. Dead last in points scored per game. These aren't numbers that get you hired. These are numbers that end careers permanently. Yet somehow Arthur Blank looked at that resume and thought this was exactly what Atlanta needed. The reaction was immediate and violent. Social media exploded within minutes of the announcement. Falcons fans who had waited patiently through years of disappointment suddenly found themselves united in fury. This wasn't the typical grumbling that follows an unpopular hire. This was pure, unfiltered rage directed at everyone involved in the decision. One fan's reaction video went viral within hours. He couldn't even form complete sentences at first. The anger was so raw, so visceral, that words failed him. When he finally composed himself enough to speak, what came out perfectly captured how the city felt. They don't take their jobs seriously. They're just messing around.
A big matchup against Jacksonville. They lose in heartbreaking fashion. 8-8 in the playoffs, 98-50 in the regular season. One of the longest active tenured head coaches in the NFL
I think they would be interested in him because McDermott's a big reason why Josh Allen has developed into the league MVP that he is.
You're not getting CJ Stroud.
And McDermott is out, and just like that, the coaching carousel almost has to be put on hold around the league.
They must be at Magic City late at night, making these decisions hungover. For those unfamiliar with Atlanta culture, that Magic City reference cuts deep. He's essentially saying the Falcons organization made this decision while drunk at a strip club instead of actually thinking about what's best for the franchise. That's not criticism. That's complete dismissal of the organization's competence. But the reaction videos kept coming, each one angrier than the last. Each one raising the same fundamental question that nobody in the Falcons front office apparently considered. How do you hire the man who allegedly destroyed Shedeur Sanders to coach in Deion Sanders' city? The logic simply doesn't exist. From a pure football standpoint, the hire makes no sense. Raheem Morris, the coach Atlanta just fired, went 16-18 over his 2 seasons. That's a near 500 record. Not championship caliber, but certainly respectable. Kevin Stefanski went 8-26 during the same time frame. That's a winning percentage of less than 24%. You fired the guy with the better record to hire the guy with the worse record. And not just slightly worse, dramatically worse, historically worse, expansion team worse. The numbers tell a story of complete offensive dysfunction under Stefansky. His Cleveland offenses couldn't score. They couldn't move the ball. They couldn't protect their quarterback. And speaking of quarterbacks, that's where this situation gets truly explosive. Stefanski's track record with young quarterbacks is a horror show. He couldn't develop Shedeur Sanders despite the kid showing flashes of brilliance when given opportunities. He couldn't fix Deshaun Watson despite the massive investment Cleveland made. His quarterback management strategy has been a complete and total failure by every measurable standard. So naturally, the Falcons decided he's the perfect guy to develop Penix Jr. The disconnect between what Atlanta fans expected and what they received couldn't be wider. This organization had been through extensive interviews with multiple candidates. Fans assumed all that due diligence meant they'd land someone exciting, someone with momentum, someone who hadn't just been fired for losing 26 games in 2 seasons. Instead, they got Kevin Stefanski, the man who reportedly gave up play calling twice in Cleveland because he was so terrible at it. The coach whose offenses couldn't crack the top 25 in any meaningful statistical category. The person who allegedly created an environment so toxic that a first-round quarterback couldn't develop. One Falcons supporter put it bluntly in his viral response: "We don't want your ugly self here. Get on somewhere. The Atlanta Falcons do not mess with this city." That's not disappointment talking. That's rejection. Complete and total rejection of a hire that fans see as fundamentally disrespectful to everything Atlanta represents. And that rejection is only going to intensify as more details emerge about exactly what Stefanski did to Shedeur Sanders during that nightmare season in Cleveland. Because what happened to Shedeur wasn't just bad coaching. According to those close to the situation, it was systematic sabotage. The allegations coming out of Cleveland paint a picture of a coaching staff that never wanted Shedeur Sanders and made sure he knew it from day one. This wasn't a situation where a young quarterback struggled and his coaches tried everything possible to help him succeed. This was allegedly a calculated effort to ensure Shedeur failed so spectacularly that nobody would blame the coaching staff for the team's struggles. It reportedly started with practice reps, or more accurately, the lack of them. Multiple sources have suggested that Stefanski's staff consistently limited Shedeur's opportunities to develop during practice, while other rookie quarterbacks around the league were getting the repetitions they needed to adjust to NFL speed. Shedeur was allegedly being frozen out. Think about what that means for a young player. You're thrust into an NFL starting role. The game is faster than anything you've experienced. Every defense is scheming specifically to confuse you. And your own coaching staff won't give you the practice time necessary to improve. That's not development. That's sabotage with extra steps. But the practice rep situation was only part of the problem. The offensive line play in front of Shedeur was historically atrocious. We're talking about a pressure rate on dropbacks that approached 46%. Nearly half of every passing play saw Shedeur running for his life before he could complete his reads. Now here's where it gets interesting. Offensive line performance falls directly under the head coach's responsibility. Stefanski is supposed to be an offensive genius. That's literally his reputation. So either he's not actually good at his job, or he deliberately allowed his line to hang Shedeur out to dry. Neither option looks good for the man Atlanta just hired. The whispers from inside Cleveland's facility suggest Stefanski never believed in Shedeur as a prospect. Rumors indicate he wanted different players and was essentially forced to work with the front office's draft choice. Rather than adapt his system to maximize his quarterback's strengths, he allegedly maintained a scheme that exposed Shedeur's weaknesses repeatedly. That's coaching malpractice. When you have a young quarterback, your job is to protect him. You design quick throws to get the ball out fast. You create running plays to take pressure off the passing game. You scheme receivers open so your quarterback isn't making difficult throws into tight windows every snap. Stefanski reportedly did none of that. Instead, he asked Shedeur to execute a system that required extended time in the pocket. Time that Shedeur never had because the offensive line couldn't block anyone. Some analysts have suggested this was intentional. By setting Shedeur up to fail, Stefanski could point to the quarterback as the problem rather than accepting responsibility for the offensive dysfunction. Classic scapegoating from a coach who knew his seat was getting hot. The pressure Shedeur faced went beyond just physical protection issues. There are reports of minimal communication between quarterback and head coach, suggestions that Stefanski's staff didn't provide adequate film study support, indications that the entire offensive infrastructure was designed to make the front office's quarterback look bad rather than helping him develop. If even half of these allegations are true, Stefanski should never coach in the NFL again. Instead, Arthur Blank just gave him the keys to the Falcons franchise. The Shedeur situation becomes even more damning when you consider who his father is. Deion Sanders isn't just any former player. He's one of the most vocal, media-savvy personalities in sports history. He's currently coaching at Colorado, where he's revitalized an entire program through sheer force of personality. Did Stefanski think mistreating Deion's son would go unnoticed? Did he believe Prime would simply stay quiet while his son's career was allegedly being destroyed? The arrogance required to make that assumption is staggering. And now that arrogance has followed Stefanski to Atlanta. The one city in America where disrespecting Deion Sanders is essentially a crime against the culture. The one market where Prime's legacy is woven into the fabric of the community. The one fan base that would take Shedeur's mistreatment personally, even if they'd never met the young man. Stefanski didn't just allegedly sabotage a quarterback. He allegedly sabotaged Deion Sanders' son. And then he accepted a job in Deion Sanders' city expecting everyone to forget about it. The Cleveland situation has become a cautionary tale about what happens when coaching ego supersedes player development. Shedeur deserved better. He deserved a staff that believed in him. He deserved coaches who would scheme around his abilities rather than his limitations. He deserved protection from an offensive line that was clearly not prepared to compete at the NFL level. He got none of that. What he got instead was a season of misery, followed by watching his alleged saboteur get rewarded with another head coaching job. But here's where karma enters the picture. Stefanski wanted redemption. He wanted to prove Cleveland was the problem. He wanted another chance to show he's still an elite coach. What he's walking into is a nightmare beyond anything he experienced with the Browns. To understand why this hire has created such an explosive reaction, you need to understand what Deion Sanders means to Atlanta. This isn't just nostalgia for an old player. This is deep cultural reverence for someone who transcended football and became a symbol of the city itself. Prime Time didn't just play for the Falcons from 1989 to 1993. He became Atlanta. The swagger, the confidence, the absolute refusal to be anything other than the biggest personality in any room. That attitude wasn't foreign to Atlanta. It was Atlanta personified on a football field. During those years, Deion became a two-time Pro Bowl selection. He was an all-pro defender who changed games with his mere presence on the field. Opposing quarterbacks literally refused to throw in his direction. Offensive coordinators had to redesign their entire game plans just to avoid his coverage zone. But the statistics only tell part of the story. What made Deion legendary in Atlanta was how he represented the city's energy to the world. This was a young black man from the South showing everyone that excellence could look like confidence. That success could come with style, that you didn't need to be humble about being great. Atlanta embraced that message because Atlanta lives that message. This is a city built on Black excellence, a city where cultural movements begin, a city where swagger isn't just accepted, but expected. Deion fit Atlanta like a glove because Deion essentially was Atlanta in cleats. That legacy hasn't faded with time. If anything, it's grown stronger. Deion's current success at Colorado has reminded everyone of his unique ability to inspire and lead. His media presence keeps him in the national conversation constantly. His advocacy for his son's career has shown a different side of Prime, the protective father willing to call out anyone who wrongs his child. When Atlanta fans see Deion, they see themselves. They see what their city represents. They see the standard of excellence that defines their community. Disrespecting Deion in Atlanta isn't just unpopular, it's culturally unacceptable. And now Arthur Blank has hired the man accused of systematically undermining Deion's son. The symbolism couldn't be worse if Blank had designed it intentionally. Every Falcons fan who grew up watching primetime now has to watch the coach who allegedly sabotaged his son walking their sidelines. Every Atlanta native who takes pride in the city's connection to Deion has to reconcile that pride with their team's decision. This isn't about whether the allegations against Stefansky are proven beyond doubt. This is about optics. This is about respect. This is about understanding your market well enough to know what hires will be embraced and which ones will create civil war. Blank apparently didn't consider any of this. Or worse, he considered it and decided it didn't matter. Either way, the message received by Atlanta fans is crystal clear. The organization values whatever they think Stefansky brings to the table more than they value the cultural sensitivities of their own fan base. That's a dangerous message to send in any market. In Atlanta specifically, it might be fatal to the relationship between team and community. Some Falcons supporters have already drawn direct lines between this hire and previous organizational failures. The 28-3 Super Bowl collapse, years of playoff disappointment, questionable roster decisions that set the franchise back repeatedly. Each failure has chipped away at fan trust. This hire might have shattered what remained. The Deion factor extends beyond just his playing career too. Prime is currently one of the most influential voices in football. His Colorado program has become a content machine. His opinions on players, coaches, and the NFL carry weight that few others can match. His platform reaches millions of people daily. Does Stefanski think Deion will remain silent about this situation? Does he believe Prime will simply ignore the fact that the man who allegedly destroyed his son's rookie season is now coaching in his city? The content practically writes itself. Every time the Falcons struggle, Deion can reference what Stefanski did to Shedeur. Every time the offense looks dysfunctional, Prime can point out how familiar that looks. Atlanta fans already worship Deion. If he begins actively criticizing the Falcons' coaching staff, the franchise will have a civil war on their hands. Season ticket holders who might have eventually accepted Stefanski will have their resistance reinforced by their hero. Casual fans who weren't paying close attention will suddenly have strong opinions about the coach. Stefanski isn't just walking into a hostile environment. He's walking into a situation where the most beloved figure in franchise history has every reason to make his tenure miserable. And knowing Deion's personality, he won't be subtle about it. The Falcons organization somehow missed all of this. They saw Stefanski's Coach of the Year awards and ignored his recent failure. They saw his offensive background and ignored his offensive incompetence. They saw an available coach and ignored why he was available. What they should have seen was a cultural minefield that any competent organization would have avoided completely. One of the most viral reactions to the Stefanski hire came from a fan who didn't hesitate to call this exactly what many people are thinking, but few are willing to say publicly. This is a racial situation. For people that may not think it's racial, it is. That statement has created intense debate online. Some argue football decisions shouldn't be viewed through racial lenses. Others point out that ignoring race when making decisions in a predominantly black city is exactly how you end up with tone-deaf disasters like this hire. Here's the reality. Atlanta isn't like other NFL markets. The city's population is predominantly African American. The fan base reflects that demographic reality. The cultural institutions, the business community, the art scene, the entire identity of Atlanta is rooted in Black excellence and Black achievement. When you make decisions that affect Atlanta, you have to understand Atlanta. You have to recognize that this community holds certain values. You have to appreciate that disrespecting Black icons in this market won't be quietly tolerated like it might be elsewhere. Arthur Blank apparently missed that memo entirely. The argument being made by many fans is straightforward. You don't bring in a guy who disrespected a Black man's son trying to play in the NFL to coach a team in a predominantly Black city. That framing resonates because it captures the essence of why this hire feels so wrong to so many people. Shedeur Sanders isn't just any quarterback who had a rough rookie season. He's the son of a Black icon who represents everything Atlanta celebrates. His struggles in Cleveland weren't just professional setbacks. They were allegedly the result of a white coach who didn't believe in him and worked to ensure his failure. Whether that characterization is completely fair to Stefanski doesn't really matter at this point. Perception has become reality. And the perception among a significant portion of Atlanta's fan base is that Stefansky is racially insensitive at best and actively hostile to young Black quarterbacks at worst. That perception will follow him into every press conference, every game, every interaction with players and fans. He'll be constantly defending himself against allegations that his treatment of Shedeur was racially motivated. And in Atlanta specifically, those allegations will find a receptive audience. The cultural mismatch extends beyond just the racial dynamics. Stefansky comes from a system that values quiet professionalism, controlled messaging, boring press conferences. That approach might work in Cleveland or other Midwestern markets. In Atlanta, it reads as cold and disconnected. Atlanta wants personality. Atlanta wants swagger. Atlanta wants coaches and players who understand the culture and embrace it. Stefansky has shown zero indication that he's capable of adapting to that expectation. Several fans have made the comparison to other tone-deaf decisions in sports history. Teams that hired problematic figures without considering how their fan bases would react. Organizations that prioritized on-field considerations over community relationships. Each of those decisions eventually created problems that outweighed whatever value the hire was supposed to bring. The Falcons are walking directly into that same trap. What makes this situation particularly frustrating for fans is that it was entirely avoidable. There were other coaching candidates available. There were options who didn't come with the baggage of allegedly sabotaging a beloved figure's son. There were hires that would have excited the fan base rather than enraging it. Blank chose Stefansky anyway. That choice communicates priorities. It tells Atlanta fans that their cultural concerns don't matter to ownership. It signals that the organization will make whatever decisions it wants regardless of how the community feels about them. That's not how you build loyalty. That's how you destroy it. The racial conversation around this hire isn't going away. If anything, it's going to intensify as the season approaches. Every time Stefansky makes a questionable decision regarding a Black player, people will reference what he allegedly did to Shedeur. Every time the offense struggles, analysts will question whether Stefansky can relate to and develop Black quarterbacks. He's created a narrative that he'll never escape. Or more accurately, his treatment of Shedeur created that narrative, and the Atlanta hire just guaranteed it would follow him forever. Some Falcons fans have suggested the only way to heal this rift is for Stefansky to publicly acknowledge what happened in Cleveland and apologize for how Shedeur was treated. Whether that would actually help is debatable. But the fact that fans are demanding accountability before their new coach even holds his first practice tells you everything about how damaged this relationship already is. Atlanta deserved better than this. The fan base deserved an organization that understands their values. The community deserved respect from ownership. What they got instead was a decision that prioritized coaching credentials over cultural awareness. And the consequences of that decision are only beginning to unfold. Strip away the controversy for a moment. Forget about Shedeur Sanders. Ignore the cultural implications. Focus purely on football metrics. Kevin Stefanski's recent record is indefensible. Over his last 2 seasons in Cleveland, Stefanski went 8-26. That's a winning percentage of just 23.5%. For context, expansion teams typically perform better than that. First-year coaches with no NFL experience perform better than that. Random selection of plays would probably perform better than that. Yet the Atlanta Falcons looked at those numbers and decided this was their guy. The comparison to Raheem Morris makes the decision even more baffling. Morris, the coach Atlanta just fired, went 16-18 over his final 2 seasons. That's essentially a .500 record. Not spectacular, but competitive. Games were close. The team showed flashes of potential. Stefanski's Cleveland teams didn't show flashes of anything except dysfunction. They were getting blown out regularly. They were losing games they should have won. They were regressing rather than improving as the seasons progressed. By what logic do you fire the coach with the better record to hire the coach with the worse record? What formula exists in football analytics that supports this decision? What metric could possibly justify choosing 8 and 26 over 16 and 18? The answer is none. There is no logical football justification for this hire, but the overall record only begins to tell the story. Dive into Stefanski's offensive rankings, and the picture becomes even more damning. His Cleveland offenses ranked 30th in total offense during his final season. The year before that, 28th. The year before that, 31st. Dead last in points scored per game. These are historically bad numbers for a coach whose entire reputation was built on offensive innovation. Stefanski was supposed to be a quarterback whisperer. He was supposed to design creative schemes that maximize talent. He was supposed to be the offensive genius who could build a dynamic scoring machine. Instead, he built units that couldn't move the football, that couldn't score touchdowns, that couldn't protect their quarterbacks, that couldn't execute basic offensive concepts consistently. One viral reaction video broke down these rankings in devastating fashion. The fan pointed out that Stefanski gave up play calling twice during his Cleveland tenure because he was so terrible at it. Twice. The supposed offensive genius had to surrender the thing he was supposedly genius at because it wasn't working. And now, the Falcons expect him to develop Penix Jr. The quarterback development angle deserves particular scrutiny because it's Stefanski's biggest weakness masquerading as a strength. His reputation suggests he should be great with quarterbacks. His actual results prove the opposite. Shedeur Sanders showed legitimate NFL potential when given opportunities. Quick release, good decision-making under pressure, ability to extend plays, all the traits you want in a young quarterback. Under Stefanski's guidance, none of those traits translated into on-field success. Deshaun Watson, despite his off-field issues, was supposed to be a franchise quarterback. Under Stefanski, he looked completely lost. The connection between coach and quarterback never materialized. The system never fit Watson's strengths. Every quarterback who played under Stefanski in Cleveland regressed or failed to develop. That's not bad luck. That's not circumstance. That's a pattern. And patterns tell you who coaches really are. Penix Jr. should be terrified right now. He's about to be coached by someone whose track record with quarterbacks is nothing short of disastrous. All the potential in the world won't matter if the system doesn't allow him to succeed. All his talent won't translate if his coach can't scheme around his abilities. Falcons fans who actually study football are asking the obvious question: what exactly is the plan here? What does Stefanski bring that justifies overlooking his recent failures? What has he shown recently that suggests he can turn Atlanta's offense into something competent? The answers don't exist because the questions expose the absurdity of the hire. Some have speculated that Blank was seduced by the Coach of the Year awards. Those accolades came in 2020 and 2023, back when Stefanski's teams were competitive. But those seasons feel like ancient history now. The recent trajectory is straight down. The recent evidence suggests whatever magic Stefanski once possessed has completely evaporated. NFL coaching is about what you've done lately. And lately, Stefanski has done nothing except lose games and destroy quarterback careers. The statistical reality should have disqualified him from consideration. Any organization doing proper due diligence would have seen those numbers and moved on to other candidates. Any owner paying attention would have asked why a coach with those rankings deserves another chance at the highest level. Arthur Blank either didn't see the numbers or didn't care about them. Neither option reflects well on his judgment. Atlanta fans deserve to know the reasoning. They deserve to understand what possible justification exists for this hire. They deserve transparency about what the organization saw in Stefanski that isn't visible to anyone else. Until those explanations come, the backlash will only continue growing. What started as angry social media reactions has evolved into something far more organized and potentially damaging. Falcons fans aren't just complaining about the Stefanski hire. They're actively planning to make his tenure as difficult as possible. The boycott discussions began within hours of the announcement. Season ticket holders started posting about demanding refunds. Longtime supporters declared they wouldn't attend games until Stefanski was gone. Casual fans who might have purchased individual tickets announced they'd stay home entirely. This isn't typical fan disappointment. This is coordinated resistance. The most visible element of the planned protest involves Deion Sanders jerseys. Fans are organizing campaigns to wear primetime throwbacks to every home game. The symbolism is obvious and impossible to ignore. Every time Stefansky looks into the stands, he'll see hundreds or thousands of reminders of what he allegedly did to Deion's son. That psychological pressure would be intense for any coach. For someone walking into an already hostile situation, it could be unbearable. Some fans have taken the protests even further. There are reports of messages being sent to Falcons' corporate sponsors threatening to boycott their products if they continue supporting the team under Stefanski's leadership. Whether those threats materialize into actual economic pressure remains to be seen, but the intent is clear. Hit the organization where it hurts. Make the financial consequences of this hire impossible to ignore. The economic implications could be significant. NFL franchises depend on fan engagement for revenue. Ticket sales, merchandise purchases, concession spending, parking fees. All of that depends on fans actually wanting to attend games. If the boycott gains serious traction, the Falcons could see measurable declines in game day revenue. Television ratings present another concern. If Atlanta fans are so disgusted that they stop watching home games, advertisers will notice. Local broadcast partners will notice. The ripple effects could extend far beyond Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Historical comparisons are being drawn to other fan revolts in sports history. The Cleveland Browns fans who threw bottles on the field after controversial calls. The Washington Commanders supporters who demanded ownership changes. The European soccer ultras who have literally run coaches and owners out of clubs through sustained pressure campaigns. Atlanta's situation hasn't reached those extremes yet, but the foundation is being laid. The organizing is happening. The anger is real and it's not dissipating. What makes this boycott different from typical fan complaints is the unifying factor. This isn't about disagreeing with a draft pick or questioning a free agent signing. This is about fundamental disrespect to a cultural icon in his own city. That kind of slight creates solidarity that normal football disappointments never could. Fans who might disagree about roster decisions are united in their outrage about Stefansky. Supporters who normally argue about play calling are aligned in their rejection of this hire. The Shedeur situation has created common ground that transcends usual fan divisions. Several prominent Atlanta sports media personalities have amplified the boycott message. Local radio hosts have dedicated segments to discussing the fan revolt. Podcast creators are producing content specifically about the Stefansky backlash. The coverage is keeping the anger alive and spreading it to audiences who might not have initially cared. Social media algorithms are doing the rest. Every angry video gets shared. Every boycott threat gets amplified. Every call for protest reaches new audiences who then add their own voices to the chorus of disapproval. The Falcons organization has so far remained silent about the backlash. No statements addressing fan concerns. No attempts to explain the hiring decision. No outreach to the community to calm the situation. That silence is making things worse. Fans interpret it as confirmation that ownership doesn't care about their opinions. Each day without a response adds fuel to the perception that this organization is completely disconnected from its fan base. Some have suggested Stefansky himself needs to address the Shedeur situation directly. Acknowledge what happened in Cleveland. Take responsibility for how the rookie was treated. Show some understanding of why Atlanta fans are upset. That kind of proactive communication might diffuse some of the tension. But Stefansky has shown no indication he's willing to go there. His history suggests he'll try to ignore the controversy and focus on football. In most markets, that approach might work. In Atlanta, it's going to backfire spectacularly. The boycott movement represents something larger than just this one hire. It's fans demanding respect from their organization. It's a community asserting that cultural considerations matter. It's supporters making clear that they won't simply accept whatever decisions ownership makes. Whether the Falcons listen remains to be seen. But the message is being sent loudly and clearly. This hire was wrong. This decision was disrespectful. And unless something changes dramatically, the consequences will follow Stefanski throughout his entire tenure. The jerseys will be there. The empty seats might be there. The chants calling for his removal will definitely be there. Welcome to Atlanta, Kevin. Arthur Blank built Home Depot into one of the most successful retail companies in American history. His business acumen is undeniable. His wealth is immense. His commitment to the Atlanta Falcons has included building one of the most impressive stadiums in professional sports. None of that changes the fact that this hire makes absolutely no sense. Blank's reputation as an owner has always been positive. He's seen as hands-on but not meddlesome, involved but not overbearing, willing to spend money to make the team competitive, respected by players and coaches throughout the league. That reputation is taking serious damage right now. The interview process for the Falcons' head coaching position was reportedly extensive. Multiple candidates were brought in. Thorough evaluations were conducted. All the proper due diligence steps were supposedly followed. And after all that work, they chose Kevin Stefanski, the coach with the worst record of any serious candidate, the coach with the most controversy attached to his name, the coach guaranteed to create exactly the kind of backlash we're now witnessing. What did Blank see that justified overlooking everything working against this hire? What happened in those interviews that convinced him Stefanski was the answer? What information does ownership have that the public is missing? Those questions need answers. The fan base deserves transparency about how this decision was made. Without that clarity, people are left to assume the worst about the organization's judgment. Some have speculated that Blank was swayed by Stefanski's earlier success. Those Coach of the Year awards carry weight in NFL circles. The playoff win in Cleveland was genuinely impressive. Maybe Blank believed that version of Stefanski could be resurrected in the right environment. But that theory ignores how badly things deteriorated after those achievements. Stefanski didn't just have a couple of down seasons. He had catastrophic seasons. His teams got worse over time, not better. The trajectory was clearly downward with no signs of reversal. Any owner paying attention should have seen those warning signs. Any organization with proper analytics should have flagged the declining performance. The fact that Blank moved forward anyway suggests either willful blindness or genuine belief that the recent failures were anomalies. Neither explanation inspires confidence. The cultural miscalculation might be even more damaging to Blank's reputation than the football analysis. Arthur Blank has positioned himself as someone who understands Atlanta, who cares about the community, who values the relationship between team and city. This hire contradicts all of that positioning. You cannot claim to understand Atlanta while hiring a coach who allegedly sabotaged Deion Sanders' son. You cannot pretend to value the community while ignoring how that community feels about this decision. You cannot maintain credibility as a culturally aware owner while making culturally tone-deaf choices. Blank's silence since the announcement has made things worse. A statement acknowledging the concerns might have helped. An explanation of the reasoning might have calmed some fans. Instead, there's been nothing. Just the hire announcement and then silence. That approach reads as dismissive. It suggests ownership doesn't feel obligated to explain itself to supporters. It communicates that fans can be angry all they want, and the organization simply doesn't care. Some longtime Falcons supporters are questioning whether this signals a larger disconnect between Blank and the fan base. Has success in business led to arrogance about football decisions? Does Blank believe his judgment is superior to what fans and analysts can see? Is there a bubble around ownership that prevents real information from getting through? Those concerns might be unfair. Blank has earned the benefit of the doubt through years of generally solid ownership, but trust erodes quickly when decisions seem inexplicable. And right now, this decision seems completely inexplicable. The pressure on Blank is going to intensify if the boycott gains traction. Empty seats reflect badly on ownership, not just coaching. Declining television ratings raise questions about organizational leadership. Sponsor concerns go directly to the owner's office. Blank's legacy as an NFL owner might depend on how the Stefanski era unfolds. If the coach somehow succeeds, the gamble will be validated. If he fails spectacularly, Blank will bear responsibility for ignoring every warning sign that predicted exactly that outcome. Right now, the warning signs are flashing red. The fan reaction is unprecedented. The statistical case against Stefansky is overwhelming. The cultural considerations were completely ignored. Arthur Blank might have just made the worst decision of his tenure as Falcons owner. And unlike most business mistakes, this one is playing out in public view where millions of people can watch the consequences unfold in real time. The organization had options. They had other candidates who wouldn't have created this controversy. They had paths that didn't lead directly into cultural minefields. They chose this path anyway. Now they get to live with that choice. And so does Kevin Stefanski. Lost in all the controversy about Stefanski's past is a crucial question about the Falcons' future. What happens to Michael Penix Jr.? Under this coach's guidance, Penix was supposed to be Atlanta's franchise quarterback of the future. The organization invested significant draft capital to acquire him. Fans were excited about his potential. The trajectory seemed positive after promising moments during his initial NFL exposure. Now he's being handed to a coach with a documented history of failing to develop young quarterbacks. The concerns are immediate and legitimate. Stefanski's most recent quarterback projects all regressed under his coaching. Shedeur Sanders showed talent, but was allegedly sabotaged at every turn. Deshaun Watson never found rhythm in Stefanski's system. The pattern suggests something fundamentally broken in how this coach works with signal callers. Penix deserves better than to become the next victim of that pattern. What specifically should worry Atlanta fans about Penix's development? Start with scheme fit. Stefansky has shown limited ability to adapt his offensive system to match his quarterback's strengths. He runs what he runs regardless of whether the personnel can execute it effectively. Penix has specific skills that need specific scheming to maximize: his arm strength, his mobility, his ability to make plays outside the pocket. A creative offensive mind would build around those attributes. Stefanski's history suggests he might try to force Penix into a system rather than building a system around Penix. If that happens, we'll see the same dysfunction that plagued Cleveland. Talented quarterback, incompatible scheme, predictable failure. Protection concerns are equally alarming. Stefanski's Cleveland offenses provided historically bad pass protection. His quarterbacks were getting hit constantly. Pressure rates were through the roof. Either he couldn't coach the line properly, or he didn't prioritize protecting his quarterback. Neither explanation bodes well for Penix's health and development. Young quarterbacks need clean pockets to develop confidence and rhythm. They need time to go through progressions. They need protection from the physical punishment that leads to injuries and happy feet. If Stefanski's Atlanta offenses produce the same protection issues as his Cleveland units, Penix could be in serious trouble. And once a quarterback loses confidence in his line, the damage is often permanent. The communication concerns might matter most of all. Reports from Cleveland suggested minimal productive communication between Stefanski and his quarterbacks. The relationship felt cold and distant. The collaboration necessary for quarterback development simply wasn't happening. Penix needs a coach who will invest time in understanding how he thinks, who will work with him on mental preparation, who will build trust through constant communication and feedback. Based on available evidence, Stefanski isn't that coach. Some optimists suggest that Stefanski's Cleveland experience might have taught him lessons, that he'll approach Atlanta differently, that he's learned from his mistakes and will adapt his methods. That hope seems misguided. Coaches rarely change fundamental approaches this late in their careers. What you saw in Cleveland is what you're getting in Atlanta. The same tendencies, the same limitations, the same inability to maximize quarterback potential. Penix's representation should be concerned. His family should be concerned. Anyone invested in his career development should be extremely concerned about what the next few seasons might look like under Stefanski's guidance. The Falcons might have just sacrificed their franchise quarterback's development to satisfy whatever strange logic led them to this hire. That's a devastating possibility for an organization that desperately needs Penix to become a star. Alternative scenarios exist. Maybe Stefanski has genuinely evolved as a coach. Maybe the Atlanta environment will bring out his best qualities. Maybe Penix is so talented that even imperfect coaching won't hold him back. But hoping for best-case outcomes while ignoring overwhelming evidence to the contrary isn't smart organizational strategy. It's wishful thinking that usually ends in disappointment. Penix deserved to walk into a situation with a coach who believes in him, who has a track record of quarterback development, who will fight for his success rather than potentially undermining it. Instead, he got Kevin Stefanski. And now everyone gets to watch whether history repeats itself with another talented young quarterback stuck in an incompatible system with a coach who can't develop passers. The smart money says it doesn't end well, and Penix will be the one paying the price for someone else's bad decision. While Kevin Stefanski walks into his Atlanta nightmare, Shedeur Sanders gets to experience something entirely different. He gets to watch his alleged saboteur face consequences while his own situation improves dramatically. The irony is almost too perfect. Shedeur stays in Cleveland with a completely new coaching staff, people who actually want to develop him, coaches who didn't spend a season allegedly trying to destroy his career. A fresh start with professionals who see his talent and want to maximize it. That's the opposite of what Stefanski is getting. While Shedeur works with supportive coaches, Stefanski works under constant fan hostility. While Shedeur develops in a positive environment, Stefanski tries to survive an environment designed to make him fail. The roles have completely reversed. Think about what Shedeur experienced during his rookie season. Limited practice reps, terrible protection. A coach who allegedly didn't believe in him, constant pressure with minimal support, an atmosphere designed to ensure his failure rather than facilitate his success. Now Stefanski gets to experience something similar, a fan base that doesn't believe in him, media scrutiny designed to expose his flaws, an atmosphere so hostile that success might be impossible regardless of what he does on the field. The universe has a sense of humor sometimes. Deion Sanders is watching all of this unfold from Colorado, and knowing Prime's personality, he's enjoying every moment. His son was allegedly mistreated, and now the person accused of that mistreatment is suffering in Prime's own city. You couldn't write better karma if you tried. Deion hasn't made public statements about the Stefanski hire yet, but everyone knows they're coming. Prime doesn't stay quiet when his family is involved. He doesn't let slights go unanswered. He uses his massive platform to speak truth as he sees it. When those statements come, they'll add fuel to an already raging fire. Atlanta fans who need additional motivation to oppose Stefanski will get it directly from their hero. The pressure that's already intense will become absolutely crushing. Stefanski thought leaving Cleveland would mean escaping the Shedeur situation. Instead, he walked directly into the one city where that situation would follow him most intensely. He thought a new team would mean a fresh start. Instead, he got a fresh wave of consequences for his alleged actions. The coaching carousel sometimes produces these perfect karmic outcomes. A coach escapes one difficult situation only to land in a worse one. Someone who allegedly mistreated others finds themselves mistreated by circumstances. The universe balances itself in unexpected ways. Shedeur can focus on his development now without looking over his shoulder. His new coaches want him to succeed. His new environment supports his growth. His future is bright regardless of what happened during that rough rookie campaign. Stefanski's future is uncertain at best. Every game will be scrutinized through the lens of what he allegedly did to Shedeur. Every struggle will be blamed on his character as much as his coaching. Every loss will trigger new calls for his dismissal. He wanted redemption. He wanted to prove Cleveland was the problem, not him. He wanted another chance to show he's an elite head coach. What he got instead is a situation where redemption might be impossible, where he'll be defending himself before he coaches a single game, where the fan base has already decided he doesn't deserve to be there. Shedeur might have lost his rookie season to alleged sabotage, but he's winning the long game. His career has a clear positive trajectory. His support system is strong. His talent will eventually shine through. Stefanski's career trajectory is heading the opposite direction. This might be his last head coaching opportunity. If he fails in Atlanta, and all evidence suggests he will, no other team will take a chance on him. The young quarterback allegedly victimized by the veteran coach is watching that coach's career collapse in real time. The son of a legend is seeing his father's legacy weaponized against the man who allegedly tried to destroy him. Justice delayed isn't justice denied. Sometimes it just takes a while for the universe to sort things out. In this case, the sorting is happening in spectacular fashion. Shedeur can smile knowing the truth is coming out, knowing that his struggles weren't his fault, knowing that the coach who allegedly sabotaged him is now the one being sabotaged by circumstances. That's karma. That's cosmic justice. That's exactly what was supposed to happen. The question everyone is asking has a pretty obvious answer. Kevin Stefanski probably cannot survive this situation. The deck is stacked too heavily against him. The opposition is too organized. The circumstances are too hostile. But let's examine what survival would actually require. First, Stefansky would need to win immediately. Not eventually. Not after a rebuild. Immediately. Atlanta fans aren't giving him time to develop a program. They want him gone now. The only thing that might quiet the criticism is consistent winning from week 1. Given his recent record of 8-26, immediate winning seems unlikely. Second, he would need to completely transform his offensive approach. The same schemes that ranked 30th, 28th, and 31st in Cleveland won't suddenly work better in Atlanta. He needs innovation he's never shown, adaptation he's never demonstrated, growth that would contradict everything in his recent history. The chances of that transformation happening approach 0. Third, he would need to win over the locker room despite external chaos. Players will see the protests. They'll hear the chants. They'll feel the hostility from their own fan base. Keeping that group focused and unified requires exceptional leadership. Stefansky has never shown exceptional leadership during adversity. His Cleveland tenure was marked by finger-pointing and blame-shifting, not inspirational guidance through difficult times. Fourth, he would need to somehow address the Shedeur situation in a way that satisfies critics. That probably means public acknowledgement and apology. Stefansky has shown no willingness to go there. His instinct seems to be ignoring controversy and hoping it disappears. That approach will not work in Atlanta. The controversy will not disappear. The Shedeur situation will be raised constantly. Every press conference will include questions about it. Every bad game will trigger new criticism connected to it. The path to survival essentially doesn't exist. Too many things would have to go right. Too many patterns would have to change. Too much history would have to be overcome. What seems more likely is an accelerated timeline toward failure. Stefansky starts the season under unprecedented pressure. Early losses compound the criticism. Fan protests intensify. Media coverage becomes increasingly negative. The locker room starts questioning whether they can succeed in this environment. By midseason, calls for his firing become deafening. By season's end, the Falcons face a choice between acknowledging a massive mistake or doubling down on a clearly failed experiment. Given the severity of the backlash, ownership might not wait for season's end. If the protests damage revenues and the team starts losing, Blank might cut his losses early rather than endure a full year of chaos. Historical precedent supports that possibility. Coaches who lose fan bases rarely last long regardless of contract guarantees. Owners who see their brands damaged by unpopular hires often move quickly to limit that damage. Stefansky could realistically be fired before finishing his first season. Not because he lost games, though he probably will, because the situation was untenable from the moment it was announced. The irony is thick. Stefansky wanted another shot at being a head coach. He got that shot in the worst possible situation imaginable. He'll have the title he wanted while having none of the support necessary to succeed. Some coaches thrive in hostile environments. They use criticism as motivation. They prove doubters wrong through sheer force of will. Stefansky has never shown those qualities. He seems to shrink under pressure rather than rise to meet it. Atlanta is all pressure all the time right now. Every day brings new criticism. Every decision gets scrutinized. Every statement gets analyzed for evidence of the character flaws fans already believe he possesses. That's not an environment conducive to success. That's an environment designed for failure. And Stefansky just signed up for it voluntarily. The road ahead is short and unpleasant. The most likely outcome is embarrassing dismissal after a season of losses and protests. The best case outcome is mediocrity that satisfies no one but extends the agony. There's no scenario where this ends well for Kevin Stefansky. The path to redemption he thought he was walking is actually a path to professional destruction. And somewhere, Shedeur Sanders is watching it all unfold, knowing that sometimes the universe takes care of things on its own schedule. Kevin Stefansky wanted a fresh start. What he got instead was a guaranteed disaster. He walked into Deion Sanders' city after allegedly destroying Deion's son. He brought an 8-26 record to replace a coach who went 16-18. He accepted a job where the fan base organized boycotts before he coached a single practice. Arthur Blank made a decision that defies logic from every angle. The statistics don't support it. The cultural implications weren't considered. The community response was entirely predictable and entirely ignored. Atlanta fans are right to demand better. They're right to wear those Deion jerseys. They're right to make their voices heard until someone listens. Shedeur Sanders gets to watch karma unfold in real time. His alleged saboteur is now the one being sabotaged by circumstances. The coach who allegedly tried to destroy a young black quarterback is now facing destruction in a predominantly black city that worships that quarterback's father. Sometimes the universe corrects itself in the most poetic ways possible. This story is just beginning. The protests will continue. The losses will likely pile up. And Kevin Stefanski will learn what happens when you disrespect legends in their own city. Welcome to Atlanta, coach. Good luck. You're absolutely going to need it.